Welcome to the Pat Mayo Hour UFC Fight Night. Dillashaw versus Barao 2. In studio with me, not Cody Safdie. He is off frolicking on vacation, so it is the other host of the Bookie Beatdown on the Fight Network and Fantasy Sports Network, Paul Shaughnessy. What's happening?
I thought maybe you wouldn't even actually announce it and that people would just go, wow, Cody really let himself go in the last week.
That'd be a quick weight. People would be like onto you for like quick weight game. Like, man, I need to gain 30 pounds really quickly.
His hair grew out a lot. And
yeah, you're on like the biggest amount of steroids of all time. They like didn't transform into muscle yet. It's just the weight gain part. It's like, good stuff, this doesn't work.
Yeah, Cody off on vacation, having a good time.
Oh, yeah, loving it. Check out these.
Filling in. Glad to fill in for him.
Oh, yeah, check out these pictures of Cody. This is
what's he up to?
This is what he's off doing instead of being here. Look at these. This is ridiculous.
Are the fans going to be able to see this?
I'm going to put them up for sure.
Excellent. He looks like he's having a much better time than
striking
regularly breaking down fights.
I think he's just he's had to gather up some pictures for Tinder. That'd be my guess. Anyway,
presenting himself in a lot of those things, just kind of spread-eagled.
This is true. It's really bizarre. Anyway, you're on the show, so let me re-up you on the rules here. We're talking DraftKings, we're talking Kountermove, and we're talking odds. And we're going to try to find the biggest disparity between the prices to find out who the picks are. Of course, on the Bookie Beatdown, you guys make your DraftKings and Kountermove picks all the time.
Do.
But on this show, the Pat Mayo Hour, something different.
What's different?
Every time I mispronounce a name, you're going to hear...
Okay.
Yeah. So you need to be able to, you got to keep me on my toes here.
Yep.
Fortunately, I hear this one's not so bad.
This one, a lot of North American fighters. I imagine you're pretty good with your North American names, so this one should be pretty good for you. This is not like UFC Krakow or something.
Yeah, that was not a good one for me.
No.
But do not underestimate my ability to mispronounce names. I can barely read.
I'm excited to see how it all breaks down.
All right, let's get to the first fight. Edson Barbosa versus Paul Fielder. You like Paul Fielder? Felder, isn't it?
Felder, my friend.
There we go. See, I have the opposite.
You know what? I think maybe you're just dyslexic or something. There, you saw an I there. There wasn't an I. You're thinking Prince Fielder or Cecil Fielder.
But here's the thing: there is no I on the page.
No, there is.
So that's not even dyslexia. I'm just adding letters that aren't even there.
These things happen.
Good. All right. Anyway, Felder, $9,700 on Kountermove. Barbosa, $9,700 on DraftKings. Barbosa the same price. On Kountermove, Barbosa is $5,000. Kountermove only $4,600. Mm-hmm. You like Felder as your top bet of the week.
I like Felder. A lot of times what happens with Edson Barbosa, he's a really good striker. He likes to stay on the outside. He cuts people's legs out. He's actually finished
with a saw?
With leg kicks. So
okay.
Just keep beating away at your legs. He's actually finished 2 of his fights in his UFC career just from the other guys being like, I can't walk anymore. So
Felder's undefeated though.
Felder's 10-0. He trains with your boy, Donald Cowboy Cerrone.
The Cerrone.
Yep. Cerrone actually went to Philadelphia to help him for this camp. Drum roll, please. Cerrone has a win over Edson Barbosa. A lot of the times what happens with Barbosa, he's really good if he can stay on the outside. But if you are pushing forward, being the aggressor, he crumbles, man. He did it in his fight against Michael Johnson. He was dominating Donald Cowboy Cerrone on the feet until like 4 minutes into the first round. Donald Cowboy Cerrone landed one punch on him. He dropped like a sack of potatoes, and then Cerrone choked him out.
So he gets real rattled, is what you're saying.
Basically, when things start going wrong for him, they go wrong real quick, and Felder, I think, is going to push the pace. He's got a guy in his corner helping him out for this fight who knows the recipe to beat him already, so I like Felder. And the line actually earlier in the week was minus 110. Now we're up at plus 125. I'm hoping by fight time we get up to plus 150. I really like Felder here.
So the money's coming in on Barbosa, though.
The money is coming up because Felder's relatively unknown. He only has 2 fights in the UFC. One of them was against Jason Sago, not a very well-known guy. That was in his debut, and that was on, the first fight of the night type of thing. And then his last one was against Danny Castillo, who's also on this card right now, or this week. And that was actually a surprise. He was a pretty big underdog in that fight. Not many people giving credit to Paul Felder. There's so many fights going on that people, a name like Paul Felder just kind of gets lost in the mix.
Are you only taking him because his name's Paul?
Maybe I'm taking him because his nickname is the Irish Dragon.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, he's a ginger, though. I don't think you like that.
Well, he's Irish.
He's Irish. Yeah.
Well, of course he's a ginger.
But I think the dragon, Irish dragon, has to do with the fact that he's a ginger, fire-breathing red.
Feel like he should have a role on Game of Thrones.
Yeah?
With a nickname like that.
He actually used to be an actor.
How does that not line up then?
Yeah, I know. One day maybe he will. He just has to win a few fights here and boost his profile. And I think he's going to get the W against Edson Barbosa.
All right, Gian Valenti versus Tom Lawler.
Jean Vellante is pretty close. I'd give you that one.
Thank you.
Jean Vellante on DraftKings here, 8,600.
And that's what I noticed. Yeah,
he's a massive steal. This guy's a minus 250 favorite at the sports books right now.
That's what I saw because on Kountermove he's 5,000. Like this was the biggest one that leaked off the page of. Well, someone's got this wrong.
And on top of that, Tom Lawler hasn't fought in over 2 years at this point. He's a really entertaining guy. He likes doing these tribute kind of walk-ins and stuff. One time he came in and he'll pretend to be Chuck Norris, or he makes a show out of it. It's kind of fun.
So
to watch.
I like that.
It's definitely entertaining. But he even 2 years ago when he was fighting. He wasn't very good. He's a wrestler that doesn't really wrestle. His striking's not very good. He won a fight against Michael Kuiper. He was losing this guy, Michael Kuiper, a guy who's been cut from the organization since then. And that on top of all of that was at 185 pounds. Now he's moving up to 205. Jean Vellante is a training partner of UFC middleweight champion Chris Weidman. And a lot of people have given him a hard time for a long time. But in his last fight against Corey Anderson, another good wrestler, he definitely held his own. He's able to keep it on the feet, and he finished him in the third round. So Vellante's a guy on the rise. All the skills are starting to come together for him. So if you don't have him on your DraftKings team, you've lost it.
Okay, so that's the point here.
You have to have him there.
How about 5,000 on Kountermove, though?
5,000 maybe a little bit much. There's a lot of other guys that I'm a little bit more confident. At the end of the day, it's Jean Vellante.
But for his price, but we were saying for his price on DraftKings, it'd be ridiculous not to have.
You have to, yeah. 86, he should be a 3-1 underdog at that point.
Yeah,
right?
and he's not.
He's a
huge favorite.
A big favorite, so you have to have him.
Jessamine Duke.
You got it.
Versus Elizabeth Phillips.
Nailed it.
I always like women fights. There's a lot of striking that goes on. They're high-scoring fights. Duke is 8,800. She's plus 150 on the betting line, but they're the exact same price on Kountermove at 4,800. Is there one fighter in this that you feel like is a runaway winner?
I would go with Phillips, but the interesting thing here is that they had an amateur fight way back when, and actually Jessamine Duke won.
How long ago?
I think it was like four or 5 years ago. Lot of things have changed. Jessamine Duke's not very good. Jessamine Duke trains with Ronda Rousey.
So she is good.
But they basically, Ronda Rousey and her friends have this thing that they've called the 4 horsewomen. So it's Ronda Rousey, Jessamine Duke, Shayna Baszler, and Marina Shafir. And they're just like, oh, we're the 4 horsewomen. The only person out of the 4 horsewomen ever since they started coining this term that's won any fights is Ronda Rousey.
So it's like
they're basically a bunch. They are a bunch of jobbers, except for Ronda Rousey.
So it's like the 4 horsemen like WCW.
I suppose, but they didn't intentionally call themselves that at first for that reason. It's actually hilarious that it's ended up that way.
So you have the 4 WCW or NWA 4 horsemen. You got Ric Flair and like Arn Anderson.
Yeah,
like come on now, Tully Blanchard.
Exactly.
Like take a hike. It's Ric Flair.
True.
So this is like Rousey's team, like her pals.
Yeah, these are just they're friends, and some of them are roommates, and yada yada yada. I'm going with Phillips here. No way I'm touching her on DraftKings though. It's not a guarantee.
Are you touching either on DraftKings?
I'm not touching either of them on either.
Okay, so stay away.
It's a fight that I'm staying away from. Elizabeth Phillips 4-3. Like it's not like she's a top level competition. They like Jessamine Duke. Jessamine Duke's Ronda Rousey's friends. Obviously, they have a lot of money invested in
good promotion.
Rousey.
Yeah,
we need to find somebody that maybe Duke has a chance against. Elizabeth Phillips is the one who gets the call. I lean towards Phillips,
but
in these situations. But for DraftKings Kountermove, I'm avoiding it.
Main event: TJ Dillashaw versus your boy. Oh God, Renan Barao.
That's. You said it right at the top of the show.
I know. I messed it up. I forgot what it was.
I think you did intentionally.
No, that is not true. Why would I do that, Paul? That'd be ridiculous.
It's entertaining for
fans.
No,
people don't like it.
It's true.
People don't like it.
Renan Barao, TJ Dillashaw, rematch from their fight way back at UFC 173.
This is 5 rounds?
It went to the 5th.
No, this is a 5-round fight.
Yeah. Championship fight. This is for the Bantamweight Championship of the world.
What's Bantamweight?
135 pounds.
Oh, so little fellas.
Little fellas. So basically, to give you a little backstory on it, TJ Dillashaw, massive underdog. He was a 7-1 underdog by the time the fight went down against Renan Barao, and he starched him. Ended up finishing him in the 5th round, but completely dominated him. from pillar to post. He landed an overhand right in the first round, and basically everything from there was just Dillashaw just dominating. So you go from Dillashaw being a 7-1 underdog in the last time that they fought. It's been a year and a half has passed, and now Dillashaw is the minus 230 favorite or so.
So what have they done since? Like, how has Dillashaw's career progressed?
They were supposed to fight at UFC 177. It's supposed to be a quick turnaround rematch, and Barao ended up slipping in the sauna, hit his head, had to be taken to the hospital when he was cutting weight, and then this guy Joe Soto stepped up from the first fight of the night to take on the champion on 12 hours notice.
So is there a chance Barao
and then on top of that, so Dillashaw fought Soto, and then because Barao missed weight, or because that happened to him, they made him do a tune-up fight against Mitch Gagnon in a fight that he didn't actually look that good. He won the first round. He ended up I think he lost the second round. Then he submitted him with about a minute left in the third.
Is there any value on Barao here? Can he win this fight?
He totally can win. He won 31 straight fights up until his loss against TJ Dillashaw. I'm sure the guy hasn't forgotten how to fight at this point, but I still have to lean with Dillashaw. I was talking to Cody about it earlier in the week, and he really liked Barao at 8,500 on DraftKings.
Well, it's good salary cap savings, right?
Yeah.
Like if you put in Barao,
but if you get a remake of their previous fight at UFC 173, well, Barao's just going to get dominated for 5 rounds.
But let's say if you do believe that Barao can win, I mean, the plus 200 would actually probably end up being a good bet, probably by decision, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Barao, Volante, and Felder, if you put those 3 on your DraftKings team, you can then afford the 2 highest priced players if you wanted.
That's true. That's very true.
So if you have, the extra rounds help with significant strikes, and if you do think it's going to go the distance, then maybe you can pile up some points. But you like Dillashaw better.
Based on the fact it was just a one-sided mugging is what ended up happening between these two guys, right? So there are other people, in my opinion, on DraftKings that are around the same price as Barao that I don't have to take the risk after I've already seen with my own 2 eyes what happened the last time these guys fought.
Miesha Tate, Jessica Ai. Miesha Tate 10-7 on DraftKings, 5-4 on Kountermove, and she is a minus 200 favorite here. Is she going to end up in your lineup?
No, I'm staying away from Miesha Tate. I actually like the dog in this fight.
How come?
She has the better stand-up. I'm willing to wager that she's going to be able to avoid Miesha Tate's takedowns. Miesha Tate has very good wrestling for the women's division. If she's able to take down it's only a 3-round fight, takes her down for 2 of those rounds, this could all blow up in my face. But the better striker in this fight is Jessica Ai, and as long as this is on the feet, Jessica Ai is going to be landing points, and at 8,700 on DraftKings, she's a good look. On 4,200 on Kountermove,
that's a great look.
Great look.
That's you take her and you can afford whoever else.
Usually, when you get a price like that, it's somebody who's a 5-1 underdog, and they're going to get blasted in the first round. This is a girl who actually has a legitimate chance of winning this fight, and she has a big advantage on the feet. As long as she doesn't get taken down, I think she can win this fight.
Any quick knockouts you see on this card? Because that's where you score all your points in daily fantasy MMA.
This is a tough one. I like Zach Cummings versus Dominique Steele.
That's last on. Is that like first fight of the night?
It is the first fight of the night. Usually those are where a lot of these knockouts happen.
Well, I mean, that makes a lot of sense, though, because that's where you're putting your untested guys. There could be a big mismatch either way. So who do you like?
Dominique Steele's coming in on 2 or 3 weeks notice for this fight.
He's at scrub prices. He's 8,200 and 4-4.
And Zach Cummings is a massive 170-pound fighter. And he's training with James Krause, who's also on this card. They both train in Kansas City together. They're getting ready at the same time for this fight. I think he should be a big favorite. He's looked good against some of the division's elite Zach Cummings has.
He's also the most expensive player on DraftKings.
Yeah.
But with the way that we've constructed our lineup so far,
but
you can
take
afford
him exactly. Yeah. That's what I've actually taken him on DraftKings and Kountermove this week.
Any other fights on the card pop out to you, like maybe a good underdog, maybe a favorite that you do need to take?
I like Joe Lozon. I couldn't afford him on DraftKings because he's 11-1, and
you can't afford both.
I can't afford both, and I lean towards Zach Cummings, but I like Joe Lozon against Takanori Gomi. Takanori Gomi's 36 years old. Probably seen the best of him at this point in his career. Probably can say the same about Joe Lozon, but I think he's got a little bit more left in the tank. He's a scrapper, and Gomi kind of likes landing, like hard shots from the outside.
It's like wide punches.
He struggles when guys are getting really inside the pocket, like forcing him up against the cage, being real scrappy, takedowns and go for submission attempts. So Joe Lozon, that is his style to a T. This guy will barge forward. He will get right up into your face, and he'll make it a really tough and I guess scrappy fight. I don't have a better word for it.
Scrappy. I like
scrappy.
It. He's like Mark.
It ain't pretty, but it can be entertaining.
He's like the Mark Gruzelanek.
Yeah.
And Craig Graybeck of the UFC Octagon.
There you go.
It's just a scrappy guy. Tell me a little bit about Jim Miller at 10-1 versus Danny Castillo, who you've already brought up. Like, I recognize the name Danny Castillo, but does he always lose?
Danny Castillo, he lost against Paul Felder in his last fight.
Okay.
But
like 9-3.
He is getting ready for this fight. Obviously at Team Alpha Male with TJ Dillashaw. On top of that, they went down to Colorado to train with TJ Dillashaw's striking coach, Dwayne Bang Ludwig.
Is that his nickname, or is that like a hyphenated name?
Dwayne Ludwig.
Okay, so his name isn't Bang Ludwig?
It'd be pretty awesome if it is. He should change it. So every single fight that we see from him, even though I guess his last fight against Felder wouldn't really illuminate this, this guy is getting better on the feet. He's training with his training partner, getting him ready for the biggest fight of his life, the biggest rematch maybe that he'll ever have in his life. So I'm leaning towards the dog, Danny Castillo, in that spot.
So maybe on DraftKings, a decent play?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and a good way to save some salary cap.
Exactly.
Let's actually get to your teams, though, right now.
All right.
And we'll talk about your DraftKings team first.
DraftKings, I went with Zach Cummings. I think he's going to get the finish over Dominique Steele. TJ Dillashaw, 10-9. I know it's expensive, but I've already seen the fight before.
So these
between Barao and Dillashaw.
These are our horses right now, though, Cummings and Dillashaw. Would you have any? I mean, you were talking about Joe Lozon.
I like him.
Let's say you could take Dillashaw off and put Lozon on.
I could, but what made me go with Dillashaw instead of Lozon is a 5-round fight. And I don't have the stats of what Dillashaw would have scored on DraftKings, because obviously it wasn't around at that point in time when they did it. But he would have scored a lot of points. He dropped him multiple times. He ended up finishing him in the 5th round, and it was just a one-sided striking clinic for basically 23 minutes. So
Paul Felder, obviously you're on him.
Paul Felder, 9,700.
Hardly knew her.
Yep. I like him. I like him actually more on Kountermove because you're getting the discount at 4,600. But 9,700. If you're gonna go with your pick, you got to stick to your guns, right?
This is true. So Gian Gameshi, he comes in at 8,600.
Gian Gameshi. Yeah, he's gonna get all over Tom Lawler in this fight. 8,600. You have to have him on your team. The guy's a 2.5 to 1 favorite. Like, it doesn't make sense if you don't have him on your team. For 8,600 on DraftKings, like that's the steal of the week.
And then you went with Danny Castillo at 93, but you're also making mention that you could afford I at 87, Saunders at 94, Caraway at 95.
Yeah, Cody actually picked Caraway in that spot. We had a similar team on DraftKings. I think he ended up, rather than Volante, he had Barao because he was thinking that it's going to be a closer fight.
Yeah, we're calling him Gian Gameshi now. By the way, that's his new name.
All right, so he had Gian Gameshi on his team. Or, sorry, he didn't have Gian Gameshi on the team. He had Barao instead of Gian Gameshi in that spot. And because he thinks that with Dillashaw and Barao, either way, he's getting the winner somehow.
I don't like that. We talk about this all the time. I don't think it makes a lot of sense to take two guys in the same fight.
I think he does it because it's a 5-round fight, and there's a chance that...
Yeah, but if your guy loses, he loses. He's not, regardless of how many strikes he lands, like, you're just capping your upside of your lineup.
Well, I know. I don't do that. I don't do that myself. I'm just telling you what Cody did. And then he ended up having Caraway instead of Castillo in that spot. But I like Jessica I in 8,700. The price is right. But I almost it's a tough one because 87. The risk with Jessica I is that she could get wrestled for 2 rounds. She'd just be lying on her back, helpless, score and like lose 2 of 3 rounds. She ends up basically laying an egg on your team. That is the risk that you take. As long as she keeps it on the feet, though, she's going to be scoring lots of points.
So she is a very high ceiling, low floor type of player.
Yeah,
Like there's no real middle ground.
No, exactly.
I believe we talked about this. Cody and I talked about it a few weeks ago. I think with TJ Means. That's a guy.
Tim Means.
Tim Means.
The Dirty Bird.
Oh, now I have to give myself an X on that one too. Great.
Yeah.
But anyway, he was like, listen, like he's going to come in, he's going to win right away, or he's probably going to score 0 points. And I believe that's what happened.
And he basically scored 0 points.
But he was on my team.
Because he got finished by Matt Brown.
Yeah, downtown Matt Brown. Let's go to your Kountermove team.
Countermove team.
Lozon, he's the most expensive player, comes in at 5,500. He's there.
He's there, but the reason I was able to do it, Joe Lozon wasn't the first person that I picked on that team. I looked and I saw Jessica I 4,200. I'm like, I have to take that at that price. It's so cheap. And then Paul Felder 4,600. I already liked him anyway. So 4,600 and 4,200. I got lots of money to spend at this point. So Joe Lozon is really expensive, but I can afford it in this spot. Like he should probably be more around like 50 or 5,000, 5,100, somewhere around there.
I like this idea on Kountermove, though. It's easier to do on Kountermove than it is on DraftKings. Is take that one scrub player and then be able to forward whoever you want. You can't really do that on DraftKings.
No.
Because the pricing doesn't get abnormally low like it does. There's someone last week who was 3,900 on Kountermove.
Good times.
Yeah. What happened?
They're probably really bad.
I think they were. I think they got knocked out in the first round.
Yeah.
Either way. So you expect to. Who's your favorite play this week? I guess.
From Kountermove play?
I guess Volante at 8,600 is the play of the week.
DraftKings, you got to have him on your team.
It seems, based on the way that you've talked about them, confidence-wise, Zach Cummings seems like the quick finish guy that you do need to have on your team.
Sometimes when you're doing the MMA game here, you're betting less on the person that you're picking and more against his opponent. And
Cody told me the exact same thing last week with, I forget the dude's name, but like he's like the worst guy in UFC, and the guy went and knocked him out in the first round. Yeah, he just triumphed.
Yeah, these things happen sometimes. What was that? That was probably the heavyweight fight. Danny Omalanchuk.
That's the guy. He's like, this guy's a tomato can.
We've received some heat. We've received some heat on Bookie Beatdown for telling people about that. But let it be known that when we tell you guys those things, we're actually losing money on it as well.
That's not the
good thing about that, though, is that was the first fight of the night.
So you got to redo your lineup. You got to redo your bets a little bit, make some new parlays.
I got to remake most of my parlays at that point, so it worked out.
All right. Paul Shaughnessy, check him out on the Bookie Beatdown, which you can follow on Twitter at Bookie_Beatdown. Of course, follow Paul at Paul_Shag or just Paul Shag?
Paul Shag.
Paul Shag on Twitter. I'm Pat Mayo. You can follow me at the PME, and remember, subscribe to the Pat Mayo Hour on iTunes and YouTube under, guess this, Pat Mayo Hour. Who would have thought, huh?
Nailed it.
I'm Pat Mayo, and I'll see you next time.